everyone. I am Priya Sarathy Jones. I am the National Policy and Campaigns Director at the Fines and Fees Justice Center. The Fines and Fees Justice Center is a national advocacy organization. We work towards the elimination of fees in the criminal legal system and the equitable imposition of fines. So I want to ask you all a question. How many people in this room have ever received a traffic ticket? Maybe I should ask how many haven't. And I'm actually not surprised that what looked like nearly everyone in this room raised their hands. A traffic stop is the most common way the average American interacts with the criminal legal system. Over 20 million motorists are stopped every year. So probably a lot of tickets are issued. So I want you to think about that ticket you got, whenever it was, how much was it, what did you do to get the ticket? And more importantly, how did you handle it? Did you just pay it off online and sort of move on with your day? Did you hire a lawyer because you didn't want points? Or did you go to court and show up? And now I want you to think about what you would have done if you didn't have any resources or extra money. We criminalize poverty in America. I'm a first-generation American. My parents immigrated here from India over 45 years ago. My father came here because at the time, America had opportunity and prosperity that India didn't have. It was his opportunity to get out of his own poverty and financial limitations. And so he came here, and that was largely made possible because of the work that had been done during the Civil Rights Movement. It shifted the notion that the prosperity that America had to offer solely belonged to white people. It could belong to Black and brown people too. And so he came. And through that, he was able to achieve his dream. He was able to provide for himself, for his family, and even for my children that he didn't live long enough to meet. And yet that same America that offered him all that prosperity and all that opportunity traps millions and millions of people in a cycle of poverty and punishment, disproportionately Black people. And the question is, why? Why is someone like my father able to come here and achieve all of that while other people are trapped in this cycle? And we'd like to think that that has so much to do with their individual choices, how hard they worked, and if everyone would just do the same thing, they'd be in the same place. But that's not true. It just ignores the situational, historical, and external factors that are at play that create barriers that limit people's choices and opportunities. And one of the biggest ways that this shows up is around money, and particularly if you don't have any money and you come into contact with the criminal legal system. So come back to the traffic ticket I asked you about. If you get a traffic ticket over the river in Virginia for going 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, the ticket is going to cost you a $60 fine and $67 in court fees. So if I get that ticket, I'm likely going to pay the $127, move on with my day. If I think it's going to affect my insurance, probably going to get a lawyer, pay more money, let them handle it, and be probably annoyed and continue with whatever was going on in my life. But if I didn't have the money, I would have to appear in court. And for me, that would mean I would have to make arrangements for my children to be taken care of. I would need to take time off of work, and then I would need to get back to the jurisdiction where the ticket was issued and appear. And if I don't do all of those things at the date and time that they tell me, and I still don't have the money, they will issue a warrant for my arrest, they will suspend my driver's license, and they will add more financial penalties on top of what I already owe. Now I want you to think about that, and now open your mind to the entire criminal legal system. That issue of costs and fines and fees is only exacerbated in that larger system. At every step of the process, fees are attached to a person who comes into contact with the system. When you're arrested, arrest fees, booking fees. You go to court, public defender fees, jury fees, court fees. You're incarcerated, room and board fees, jail phone call fees, markup on commissary. When you're released, supervision fees, drug testing fees, and it goes on and on. And inevitably, these stack up. People are not going to be able to pay. And when they don't, we just double down on their consequences. suspend their driver's license, keep them on supervision indefinitely until they are able to pay off all of this. Don't allow them to expunge their criminal records if they're otherwise eligible. Don't restore their voting rights until they pay these things off. And it goes on and on. And we do all of that, all in hopes that it'll make a person pay, the person who doesn't have the money. If you punish them more, we think we're gonna see money magically appear. And that cycle of poverty and punishment is how we have chosen to deal with many of the problems in society that we either don't have the methods to deal with or the courage. And we have conflated the idea that if you can pay for something, then you are accountable. And when you can't, we will punish you until you can. And what that has allowed us to do is shift the responsibility to the individual and not look at ourselves as a collective whole. And what policies have we put in place that make this almost unattainable for a person? And the consequences of that, they exceed just that individual or just their family and community. Because what we know about poverty is that when people are in distress, they will make different decisions. They will jeopardize their freedom in order to survive another day. Alabama Appleseed conducted a survey of 1,000 Alabamians that had court debt. And what they found from that survey was 40% of the people who took that survey admitted to committing more offenses in order to pay their court debt. And 20% of them, the only offense that they had ever committed was a traffic offense. And they went on to commit felonies like sex work, selling drugs, and stealing in order to pay their court debt. So all is not lost, okay? Didn't come here to make you sad. People like me, people who work at the Fines and Fees Justice Center, and advocates around the country on the progressive side and the conservative side have been working to solve this issue. And this is at a time when I think people don't agree on what day of the week it is anymore. We agree on this, that poverty is not a crime. And so in the last few years, we have seen 22 states end their use of the debt-based driver's license system. We have worked with groups like Results for America to inform and educate local jurisdictions on what they can be doing to address fines and fees, and replicate models like we've seen in Durham, North Carolina, one that restored tens of thousands of driver's licenses and forgave over $2.5 million in debt. Places like Ramsey County, Minnesota, that have eliminated supervision fees and electronic monitoring fees on the local level, and places like Buffalo, New York, that have eliminated all of the traffic fees that show up in their system. And even with that, the problem looms large. We could not get a handle on how much criminal legal debt actually exists in America. So the Fines and Fees Justice Center undertook some research, took 2 years. We only got partial data. 12 states, I think, gave us full data, about 13 gave us partial. And we were able to conclude that in the criminal legal system, there is at least $26.1 billion of debt, primarily focused in low-income communities. And that does not include the traffic system. But we can make a new system because we know more now, so we can do more now. We can end the use of debt-based driver's licenses at the state level. We know that people need their licenses to get jobs, to get to work, to take care of their families, and we know suspending them doesn't make them pay. We can end fees in the criminal legal system because we know that the only point of a fee is to raise revenue for the government. We over-criminalize in America, so we can decriminalize and legalize offenses that really don't advance our public safety goals and only perpetuate harms. And the federal government can incentivize states to move towards these better policies and innovate and come up with models that could actually implement equitable fines across the country. We can end the criminalization of poverty in America. And if we do, we'll be one step closer to all that prosperity and all that freedom that I know my father came here for, but it won't just be available to some of us. it will be available to all of us. Thank you.